FBI probes, insurance fraud charges, embezzlement investigations, and federal indictments. The Real Housewives franchise has become a true crime documentary disguised as reality television. From courthouse steps to prison cells, these housewives are facing criminal investigations that could send them away for decades. Here's who's under investigation right now. Wendy Oo from Real Housewives of PTOAC is currently facing the most serious active criminal charges of any housewife. On October 9, 2025, Wendy and her husband Eddie Oo were arrested at their Feinberg, Maryland home on 16 counts of fraud. The arrest happened just one day after Wendy was on campus at Wesleyan University teaching her class called The Sociology of Reality TV, Race, Colorism, and Xenophobia. And she joined Wesleyan in fall 2024 as a distinguished visiting professor of sociology, affiliated with the All-Britain Center for the Study of Public Life. The next day, she was in handcuffs. A Maryland grand jury indicted both Wendy and Eddie on 7 counts of felony insurance fraud, 8 counts of misdemeanor conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and 1 misdemeanor count of making a false statement to a police officer. The charges stem from an alleged burglary that Wendy and Eddie reported to Carroll County Sheriff's deputies in April 2024 after returning from vacation in Jamaica. They claimed thieves had broken into their home and stolen over $450,000 worth of designer handbags and jewelry while they were away. But detectives investigating the burglary claimed they found major problems with the EO story. According to prosecutors, detectives discovered that Wendy and Eddie returned more than $20,000 worth of the allegedly stolen items to stores where they purchased them before the burglary supposedly occurred. Investigators also found images of Wendy wearing jewelry that had been reported stolen after the alleged burglary took place. The evidence suggests the couple filed a fraudulent insurance claim to get paid for items they either still had or had already returned to stores for refunds. At a contentious hearing in December 2025, prosecutor Melissa Hawkinsmith told the court that the couple actually has very little money despite their appearance of wealth on television. An investigation revealed they are burdened by substantial debt. Prosecutors claim the OSFOs have approximately 40 credit or debit cards, some of which are believed to be in company names. They've also allegedly used aliases, including Pam Oliver and Eddie Hennessy, in what prosecutors called a deliberate attempt to mask their identity. The OFOs are fighting the charges and attempting to quash subpoenas for 8 years' worth of their personal and business financial records. Their attorneys argue the records are private and confidential, but prosecutors say they need the documentation because the public has an interest in these crimes and ensuring justice is done. Wendy and Eddie are scheduled to face trial in April 2026. If convicted on the felony charges, they could both go to prison. The arrests and charges took place after filming for Season 10 of Real Housewives of PTOIC had concluded, but cameras were sent back to the OIFO home on October 16, 2025, 1 week after their arrest to capture their reaction. And during the Season 10 reunion that aired on February 16, 2026, Wendy revealed she is absolutely terrified of the charges. She told her castmates she spent the night she was arrested in jail and that she is not okay. "I feel like I'm in a constant nightmare. The house doesn't even feel the same." She added that after this incident, she's not the same person and hopes that we'll be okay with Eddie because she's not the same. Erica Jane from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills isn't facing criminal charges herself, but she's deeply entangled in the criminal investigation and prosecution of her estranged husband, Tom Girardi. In August 2024, Tom Girardi was found guilty of wire fraud for embezzling more than $15 million from his clients over a decade. The 85-year-old disgraced attorney was convicted of stealing money from vulnerable clients, including widows, orphans, burn victims, and families of plane crash victims. Tyler Hatcher, special agent in charge of the IRS Criminal Investigation Unit in Los Angeles, said Girardi exploited his clients' misfortunes on a grand scale. His clients sought his help in the wake of significant trauma and injury, yet he violated their trust to steal from them and fund his own lavish lifestyle. Tom was sentenced in June 2025 to 87 months in federal prison, which is over 7 years. He's currently serving that sentence despite being diagnosed with dementia and late-onset Alzheimer's disease. But the investigation didn't stop with Tom's conviction. Investigators with the FBI and IRS were tipped off by victims who reached out across districts. The 13-day trial showed that Tom misappropriated and embezzled millions of dollars from clients' trust accounts, and a key piece of his criminal scheme involved using that stolen money to support his and Erica's extravagant lifestyle. While Erica wasn't charged criminally and wasn't called as a witness at Tom's trial, she faces a massive civil lawsuit brought by the bankruptcy trustee overseeing Tom's defunct law firm. The trustee is seeking to recover over $25 million that allegedly went to Erica's company, EJ Global, between 2008 and 2020. The lawsuit claims that over $14 million in American Express charges were made by Erica on cards issued directly to her, Snorts, and another $11 million went to vendor payments made exclusively for her benefit. This money allegedly paid for her glam squad, designer clothes, music videos, and everything required to maintain her expensive to-be-me lifestyle. The trustee's lawsuit claims Erica knowingly and willingly participated in Tom's scheme, signing or authorizing every charge made on the American Express accounts and approving all vendor payments. They argue she knew she had no ability to actually pay for any of it. Erica went to trial on February 10, 2026. If she loses, she could be forced to pay back the entire $25 million, plus potentially face other penalties. She's also being sued by designer Christopher S.A. for $18 million and faces a $300,000 default judgment in Florida. Between these three cases, Erica could theoretically owe over $43 million. While this is a civil matter rather than criminal prosecution, the investigation into where Tom's stolen money went continues, and Erica remains at the center of that investigation. Porsche Williams from Real Housewives of Atlanta became part of an FBI investigation in November 2025 following an incident on a Delta flight. According to reports, entered two passengers were involved in some kind of altercation aboard the aircraft. And as with any incident occurring aboard an aircraft, federal authorities are required to conduct an investigation involving all parties to determine what, if any, offenses occurred. Porsche's attorney, Joe Hibachi, claimed in a statement that the RHA star was verbally assaulted by an IATE, an unhinged passenger without provocation. Nardi alleged that the passenger then proceeded to make false allegations that were in direct conflict with observations from several eyewitnesses. Hibachi continued that Porsche has every intention of cooperating with law enforcement to whatever extent necessary and remains confident that the passenger will be charged. A Delta representative confirmed that an incident had taken place, but revealed only that two passengers were involved and that the flight took off and landed as scheduled. As of February 2026, the FBI investigation into the incident remains ongoing. While the exact nature of what happened on that flight hasn't been fully disclosed, any incident involving potential assault or disturbance on an aircraft is taken seriously by federal authorities. Porsche has not been charged with anything at this time, but the investigation continues. Brandy Glennville from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills found herself seeking help from the FBI in February 2026 after becoming a victim of cybercrime and extortion. According to reports, a representative from Glennville filed 2 reports with the Internet Crime Complaint Center, a division within the FBI that directly handles online criminal activity. The reports were filed after Brandy and her cosmetic dermatologist, Dr. Simon Oran, were roped into suspicious online activity. Legal filings state that Brandy received an email from an unknown person who claimed to have her passwords, banking information, and personal contacts. The unknown sender demanded $7,500 in Bitcoin and warned that if the demands were not met, they would wreak havoc. All sources close to Brandy informed TMZ that the Bravo star did not give much attention to the email at first because she was going through a medical scare at that point. Bacterial infection in her face had led to additional health struggles, and she was focused on getting treatment rather than dealing with what she initially thought might be a scam email. But when the threats escalated, she contacted the FBI. As of February 2026, the investigation into who is behind the hacking and extortion attempt is ongoing. While Brandy is the victim rather than the subject of criminal investigation in this case, it highlights how housewives are increasingly targets of cybercrime due to their public profiles and perceived wealth. Caroline Manzo from Real Housewives of New Jersey is the plaintiff in an ongoing criminal investigation related to allegations of sexual harassment against Brandy Glennville. In January 2024, Caroline filed a lawsuit claiming that during filming of Real Housewives' Ultimate Girls Trip Season 4 in Morocco, in January 2023, Brandy sexually harassed her. According to Caroline's complaint, Brandy kissed her without consent while cameras were rolling, then allegedly made additional sexual advances in Caroline's hotel room later that night. While heavily intoxicated, the lawsuit alleges that Bravo and production companies violated Caroline's civil rights by creating a work environment where cast members were pied with alcohol while being deprived of food and sleep. Caroline claims producers encouraged excessive drinking to manufacture drama, knowing it would lead to inappropriate behavior. While this is primarily a civil lawsuit against Bravo and the production companies, the allegations of sexual assault are criminal in nature. If prosecutors in Morocco or the United States decide to pursue criminal charges against Brandy based on Caroline's allegations, it could result in criminal prosecution. As of February 2026, no criminal charges have been filed, but the investigation into what happened during that filming continues. Brandy has denied all allegations, but the lawsuit is ongoing and seeking damages that could reach into the millions. Jen Shah from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is no longer under investigation because her case concluded with a conviction and prison sentence. But her story is worth including as context for how these investigations work. Jen was arrested in March 2021 and charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud in connection with a telemarketing scheme that targeted elderly victims. She maintained her innocence for over a year, filming multiple seasons of RHOSLC while claiming she was being falsely accused. But in July 2022, 1 week before her trial was set to begin, she changed her plea to guilty. She admitted that from 2012 to March 2021, she agreed with others to commit wire fraud through a scheme that sold worthless business services to vulnerable people, many of them seniors. In January 2023, she was sentenced to 78 months in prison, which is 6.5 years. She began serving her sentence in February 2023 at federal prison camp in Bryan, Texas. Her sentence was reduced multiple times for good behavior, with reductions in March 2023, October 2024, January 2025, and August 2025. She was released from prison on December 10, 2025, about 2.5 years into her original sentence. Her release date was originally set for August 30th, 2026. Karen Huger from Real Housewives of OAC also completed her criminal case, but remains under supervised release as of February 2026. Karen was involved in a car accident in March 2024 where she crashed her car into a tree. She was charged with driving under the influence. During her trial, it was revealed that Karen had 3 previous drunk driving offenses on her record. She was found guilty in December 2024 on all charges except reckless driving. In February 2025, she was sentenced to 2 years in jail with 1 year suspended, meaning she had to serve 1 year behind bars. Karen served approximately 6 months at a Maryland prison before being released early in September 2025 for good behavior. Season 10 of Real Housewives of PTOAC filmed without her while she was incarcerated. She's currently on probation and under supervised release through 2026. Any violation of her probation terms could send her back to prison. While she's completed her jail sentence, she remains under the supervision of the criminal justice system. What's particularly striking about all these cases is how many involve fraud, deception, and financial crimes. Wendy and Eddie allegedly faked a burglary for insurance money. Tom Girardi stole from vulnerable clients to fund a lavish lifestyle. Jen Shah ran a telemarketing scheme targeting the elderly. The pattern suggests that the pressure to maintain an expensive lifestyle for reality television cameras pushes some housewives into illegal territory. When you're constantly competing with castmates to show off wealth and success, it becomes tempting to fake it until you make it. But faking it sometimes means committing crimes. The other common thread is that these investigations and prosecutions take years to resolve. Wendy was arrested in October 2025, put to trial until April 2026, with the case potentially dragging on even longer if there are appeals. Erica has been fighting the bankruptcy trustees lawsuit since September 2021, and her trial didn't happen until February 2026, over 4 years later. Jen Shah was arrested in March 2021, but didn't plead guilty until July 2022 and wasn't sentenced until January 2023. The legal process moves slowly, which means housewives facing charges spend years with this hanging over their heads while still trying to film reality television and maintain their public images. The financial cost of these investigations is also staggering. Legal fees for white-collar crime cases can easily reach into the millions. Wendy and Eddie are fighting subpoenas for 8 years of financial records, which means their attorneys are billing hundreds of hours just on document review and motion practice. Erica's legal team has represented her for over 4 years in multiple lawsuits, costing her millions. Even if housewives are eventually acquitted or have charges dropped, they've already spent fortunes on defense attorneys. And then there's the reputational damage that can never be undone. Jen Shah will forever be known as the housewife who went to federal prison for fraud. Karen Huger served jail time for her 4th DUI offense. Wendy Oo, a PhD with a career in political commentary and academia, was arrested for allegedly faking a burglary. These are not labels that fade away. They define how these women will be remembered, regardless of what else they accomplish. As of February 2026, the Real Housewives franchise continues to walk a fine line between entertainment and documenting criminal activity. Bravo has kept housewives on the show while they face serious charges, allowing cameras to film their arrests, court appearances, and legal battles. The network clearly sees the dramatic value in these storylines. But at what point does filming someone's criminal prosecution cross the line from entertainment to exploitation? When does keeping controversial housewives on the show become less about good television and more about profiting from people's worst moments? From insurance fraud to embezzlement, Real Housewives facing criminal investigation in 2026 proves the franchise has become as much true crime as reality TV. With trials, FBI probes, and prison sentences ongoing, these cases remind us that cameras can't protect you from consequences. Subscribe for continued updates on these investigations.